So, written communication, it involves any type of interaction where we use written words. When we write and communicate with people, when we write and interact with people, that is basically known as written communication. So, we can write a letter, we can write an application, we can write an email, we can write a message. So, whenever we write and communicate, that is known as written communication. So, there are a lot of options. We can send a message, we can write a message, we can write an email, we can write a letter. So there are a lot of options. Earlier there was only one option, that was the letter. There was no email, there was no we did not have any smartphones, mobile phones earlier. So that is why there was no other option rather than writing a letter or a postcard. But now we have a lot of options, and we can use any one of it to write and communicate with others. All right. So, written communication involves a lot of other things as well. There are certain disadvantages and there are certain advantages of written communication. Sometimes it is difficult to write and communicate. Sometimes it is difficult to write and convince people. Sometimes it is difficult to just write and try to have a conversation with someone. So at times, written communication uh, is not helpful, and sometimes written communication is very helpful. But before the advantages and disadvantages, before I discuss about the advantages and disadvantages, I would like to tell you about the elements of written communication. So there are three elements of written communication, and those elements are structure, the way the content is laid out, the way you write it, okay, uh, uh, the style, the way it is written, than the content, what you are writing about. So these are the basic three elements in written communication. So, structure. A good structure will always help you to express your feelings, express your opinions properly. Okay, whether you're writing an essay, a job application, or whatever you're writing, a good structure will always help you to express yourself more clearly and in a better way. So, you need to follow a certain things about the structure of your letter or your essay or your application, all right, or even your email. Clarify your thoughts and the purpose of your communication before you start writing. So, whenever you want to write, especially in case of formal communication, especially when you are communicating with someone for a formal purpose, for a professional purpose, for an official purpose, uh, for personal purpose, that's totally up to you. Definitely you should follow a structure. There must be, a structure must be followed. You must have written it, you must write it properly, and so that the other person can understand. But in personal communication, there's no such rule to it, because it's totally dependent upon you how you can, how you can use your words and express your feelings. But in case of professional conversations, official conversations, formal conversations, you need to first of all clarify your thoughts before you write it. You need to first of all think about the purpose. First of all, you need to think what do you want to say, and you need to figure out. You need to first of all clarify your thoughts, and then you need to write, because clarity is very important. Clarity is very important when you are communicating with someone. All right. Next is identify the key points, facts, and hints. So, whenever you are writing and communicating, identify the main points. Identify the points that you want to highlight so that the other person who is reading, who would read the message, who would read the letter, who would read it, can understand what is your actual purpose of writing. Okay, so that is why you're supposed to identify the main points. You are supposed to identify those points which you want to highlight. Next is to decide on a logical order for what you have to say. Now you cannot just, you cannot just write it down in a haphazard manner. कैसे लिखना होगा? You have to write it in a systematic manner. एक के बाद एक. You cannot jump from one point to the other and then again go back to the first point. ठीक है? तो अच्छे से लिखना होगा. You have to organize and write it systematically. So you have to decide how do you want to express it and how do you want to tell it. So you have to decide the order of writing. You have to be systematic. You have to be organized. Compose a strong introduction and ending. So whenever you write and communicate, there's introduction, there's a body, and there is a conclusion. So the introduction should be very strong, otherwise the person would not at all be interested, especially in case of your exams. Whenever you're writing a long answer, whenever you're writing an essay, whenever you're writing something long, make sure that you give a introduction. You write down an introduction, then the body, and then there must be a conclusion as well. You must write a conclusion as well. Otherwise it seems incomplete. Otherwise it totally seems incomplete. So that is why you're supposed to write down the introduction, then the body, and then the conclusion. All right. So your especially your introduction and your conclusion should be very strong, especially in case of exams. And whenever you're writing a long answer, whenever you're writing an essay, the body is something that should be good, but the main focus is always on the introduction and on the conclusion. So make sure that you compose a strong introduction and a strong conclusion. And and all the key points, everything that you want to highlight should come in the body of the letter, or the body of the letter or the application. All right. Next is use short paragraphs and sentences rather than long ones. All right. Now, whenever you write, just remember this thing. Whatever you are writing, okay, do not write long sentences. Do not write sentences which consist of 50, 60 words. Do not, because in that process they make a lot of mistakes. The other person, the person who will be reading, that person is not that person will also not be able to understand what you are actually trying to explain. So that is why write short sentences. Okay, 15 words, it's enough. And use short paragraphs so that your motto is clear, so that your motive is clear. The introduction should not be too long, it should be short. The conclusion, it should not be too long, it should be short. The body can be a little long, but it depends upon. Am I audible? Am I audible, students? I lost the I again lost the connection, so you couldn't hear my voice. Am I audible to you all now? Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
So, who does it do? Okay. So, whenever you write, use short paragraphs and short sentences. Do not write too long paragraphs, and it's a big no regarding sentences. Okay, do not write long sentences. When you write long sentences, the first thing you will do is you'll make a lot of mistakes, grammatical mistakes. You'll make a lot of grammatical mistakes, and apart from that, the other person will also not understand. Whereas regarding paragraphs, it depends upon the content, and especially the introduction and the conclusion should be short. Help key points to stand out by the use of headings, subheadings, and bullet points. Okay, so when you want to highlight certain things, so what you can do is you can just try to uh, use certain bullet points so that the other person can understand that yes, these are the points that the person wants to say, that the person wants to explain. And apart from that, you can also use headings and subheadings. So as you can see here, see, this is the name of the chapter. Now then, uh, I am talking about the elements now. So structure, style, and content. See, this is the heading, and the heading is uh, it has been underlined and it has been made bold. As you can see here, see, it has been made bold and it has been also underlined. And regarding the points, see, the bullet points, these are bullet points are used. Okay, so you can use you can write headings, you can write subheadings, and you can also use bullet points to highlight the key points, to highlight the main points. All right, so this basically will allow the one who will read your letter, or who will read your letter or your mail or your answer, the person will be able to quickly understand your message. The person will go through all the headings, all the main points, and will be able to understand it quickly. All right, so this is about the structure, and these are the things that you need to take care of regarding the structure. All right, think what you want to write. Before you write, just think about it. Just there must be clarity of your thought, there must be clarity in your thoughts. So first of all, clarify your thoughts, then just clarify the purpose of the letter or whatever you are writing. So first of all, you need to clarify, then you need to identify what are the main points, then be logical, write in a systematic order. Then your introduction and your conclusion should be very strong. In your body, you need to include the main points, and the paragraphs and the sentences should not be too long. And the last thing is to highlight the key points. How you can highlight the key points? You can use headings, you can write headings, you can write subheadings, and you can even use bullet points just to highlight your main points, so that the reader can quickly understand your message, so that the reader can quickly understand your main points. All right, next element is the style, the way you write it. Okay, the style that you have used to write it. So first of all, it should be neat and it should look good. It should be very neat. If you're writing, if it is a handwritten, then your handwriting should be good. You need to maintain that. You need to maintain it should be neat. It should be neat, and you need to write it down in a good handwriting. So I think in school, your teachers had repeatedly told you to, write in good handwriting, to improve your handwriting, to write in a neat way. So you had heard that in your school, and you have to follow that all your life. You have to follow that all your life, and you need to, whenever you are writing something with your hand using a pen, then you have to write it in good handwriting, and it should look neat. It must be neat and clean. Write in neat and clean and beautiful handwriting, and this is the thing that you have to follow all your life. Nowadays, we use our mobile phones to write. We send emails, we send WhatsApp messages, we send messages on Facebook, we send text messages. So handwriting का ये चीज़ थोड़ा सा गायब हो गया है, लेकिन sometimes you also need to write down with the help of a pen. So that is, and that's a very good habit. It's a very good habit. So you should write with a pen rather than typing. This is writing down in a copy. It's a very good habit. So whenever you're writing something, it should be neat and clean, and you should write it in good handwriting. So this is the one thing that you need to maintain. And it should be concise, and you must use the exact words. Whatever you want to say, you must use the exact words. It should not confuse the reader. Your words must not confuse the reader. So that is why you must use the proper words. You should not use words which have double meaning, and you must use specific words, and uh, your message must be clear. It must be informative. It must be your whatever you write, it must be informative. So concise means which gives a lot of information clearly. So you must be able to write it properly, so that you can give the information, you can share the information clearly and in few words. Okay. So if your paragraphs are too long, if you see that your paragraphs are too long, try to read it, properly, and then try to make it short. Okay, if you're writing something and then you see that your paragraph is too long, your paragraph has, suppose, 50 lines, the other person will be bored. All right, the other person will not that much be interested to read your 50 lines. So for that, what you have to do, you have to uh, be able to write your message in a specific manner, and you will have to write it down uh, using few words, but it should also express uh, whatever you want to share, and whatever opinion you want to provide. All right. So generally your paragraph should not be more than 10 lines. All right. So make sure that your paragraphs are less than 10 or less than 10 lines, especially when you're writing down a letter or an application. Okay, you have to take care of this thing. And again, check whether your sentences are too long. As I had already said, that your sentences must not be long. If your sentence is too long, then you'll make a lot of mistakes. So try to make it shorter. And when you write a long sentence, that means you are including a lot of ideas in one sentence. It has 50 words. A sentence has 50 words. That means you have included a lot of ideas in one sentence. So that is why one sentence must have only one idea. So that is the basic way of writing. A sentence should have only one idea, and that's how you need to write it down. So do not use any short forms. Do not use any kind of short forms, because the reader won't be able to understand if it is especially in case of professional communication and formal communication. Whenever you're communicating with someone for a professional or for a formal person, you're supposed to avoid short forms, and you're also supposed to understand the audience to whom you're writing. Okay, you're also supposed to understand the type of the reader to whom you are writing, and accordingly you have to write it down. Okay, and that's the basic thing that you have to follow, that is related to that is the style that you need to follow when you write it. It should be clean, it should be concise, it should you must use the exact words, you must not confuse the reader. The paragraphs must not be long, it should not be the sentences should not be too long. The sentences, one sentence must have only one idea, and you must try to make your writing a bit interesting, and uh, try to figure out the type of the reader, and that's how you need to write. Then the last the last element is the content, what you are writing about. So you have to write it correctly. Whenever you write it, you have to be correct. You have to be grammatically correct. You cannot make any mistake. So when you have a conversation with someone orally, people do not notice your mistake. People will not notice your mistakes. Generally, people would not notice too many mistakes. But when you are writing, you have to be very careful about it, because when the person will read it, the person will understand that yes, this is a mistake. The person will come to know regarding your mistake. So whenever you write, you cannot take any risk. You have to be correct. You do not have any other option but to be correct. You have to write it correctly. You have to write it appropriately. Your spelling, the punctuation, the spelling, grammar, everything should be on point. Everything should be correct. Otherwise, the other person will not understand. If a spelling is incorrect, then the other person might not understand what is the word, what is the meaning of that word. If you have used a wrong punctuation, if you have used a punctuation at a wrong place, meaning of the whole sentence might change. If you are grammatically incorrect, then the sentence might not have any meaning. So that is why whenever you write, you have to be very careful regarding that. And regarding the content, as I had already said earlier, in the structure part, that you have to think before you write. You have to be clear regarding your thoughts. So before you write, you have to be clear regarding your thoughts. So when you write it down, you have to be able to uh, write it clearly and properly, and your objective must be clear. The essential points must be listed properly, and it should be clear. It should be highlighted and it should be clear. And you must, if necessary, you must provide the details. Okay, if not necessary, it totally depends upon the motive of writing. So sometimes it's necessary to explain, and sometimes you can just write it down briefly, or you can just summarize it. So it depends upon the motive. So sometimes you will have to write it down in detail. So if it is required to write it down in details, if it is required, if you are required to explain down the points, then you have to explain it. Otherwise, you can just write it briefly and summarize it. So it totally depends upon the purpose. Okay, and it should be constructive. Your writing should be constructive. It should share a positive vibe. The content must be positive and it should be constructive, and it should be interesting as well, so that the reader is not bored. Okay, so these are the things that you need to maintain regarding the structure, style, and the content whenever you are communicating with people, whenever you are writing and communicating with people. So